Audiophiles invest thousands of dollars and countless hours chasing a single target, perfect acoustic transparency. Yet a strange contradiction exists in high-end audio. You can build a system with zero measurable distortion, sit down for a 2-hour session, and walk away feeling neurologically drained. Audiology categorizes this specific cognitive exhaustion as listener fatigue, a documented neurological reaction that occurs independently of physical hearing loss. Upgrading your amplifier or buying better headphones will not solve this. The source of the exhaustion is baked into the audiophile itself. Nearly all modern music is tuned to a baseline frequency of A equals 440 Hz. This standard was not chosen because it resonates with the human ear. It was adopted as an industrial compromise. Look at the physical geometry of sound. This chart compares a 432 Hz waveform with a 440 Hz waveform. As the pitch ticks up, the 440 wave compresses, packing in more cycles. That means denser acoustic energy physically striking your eardrum. High-fidelity equipment is reproducing this 440 Hz signal with perfect accuracy, passing the physical tension of that industrial baseline directly to your nervous system. For most of musical history, a universal A note did not exist. Orchestras tuned their instruments to whatever regional pitch their local church organs used. This timeline tracks historical tuning frequencies. During the Baroque era, musicians like Bach worked with pitches spanning from 392 to 415 Hz, producing a warm, wooden sound. By the classical period, the pitch climbed. Mozart and Beethoven used tuning forks resonating between 422 and 435 Hz. The environment shifted radically in the 1800s. The Industrial Revolution brought massive populations into cities, and civic leaders constructed enormous, cavernous concert halls to hold them. Musicians faced an immediate physics problem. They had to project unamplified acoustic sound all the way to the back rows of these new theaters. Instrument makers found an acoustic shortcut. If you tighten a violin string and raise its pitch, the tone becomes brighter and sharper, cutting through the air with more aggression. This triggered an acoustic arms race. Competing orchestras continually tuned higher to sound more brilliant than their rivals. Throughout the 19th century, the pitch spiked past 435 Hz, eventually reaching 440 and beyond. In 1939, an international conference in London locked A at 440 Hz. This decision was driven by the manufacturing and broadcasting industries, which required a uniform metric to coordinate radio equipment and mass-produce synthesizers. The 440 Hz standard was never optimized for human hearing. It was an industrial compromise, prioritizing volume and uniformity over physiology. Not everyone accepted this upward creep. The Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi actively fought against pitch inflation. Verdi demanded a return to a lower tuning standard. His argument relied on the mathematics of scientific pitch. Scientific pitch is built on a rigid mathematical rule. Middle C must oscillate at exactly 256 Hz. Double a base frequency of 1 Hz sequentially to trace a binary progression up to 256. This perfectly aligns the musical scale with basic binary geometry. Because musical scales are built on fixed mathematical ratios, locking this single note dictates the tuning frequencies for every other instrument in the orchestra. When C is anchored to 256 Hz, the corresponding A note drops from the industrial 440 down to exactly 432 Hz. The 432 Hz frequency is a physically symmetrical framework. It aligns acoustic resonance with mathematical laws, rather than the volume requirements of a 19th century theater. This mathematical difference translates directly into biological outcomes, an area studied in the field of psychoacoustics. The denser, high-energy waveforms of the 440 Hz standard bombard the auditory cortex, functioning as persistent low-level microstressors. Recent double-blind clinical trials published in peer-reviewed medical databases provide empirical data measuring this exact physiological response. This table summarizes crossover studies comparing patient vitals under 440 versus 432 Hz. Researchers tracked heart rate, respiratory rate, and cortisol. Under 432 Hz, subjects showed a measurable decrease in heart rate and deeper breathing. Cortisol levels dropped dramatically from 1.35 to 0.49. The clinical evidence quantifies the fatigue. The dense brilliance of 440 Hz holds the nervous system in a state of subtle tension. Lowering the pitch to 432 Hz measurably shifts the body into a state of parasympathetic dominance. The global tuning standard is an inherited industrial relic. It maximizes volume and consistency at the expense of physiological comfort. Today, we consume audio through near-field monitors and precision headphones. The 19th century requirement to project sound across a massive hall is entirely obsolete. Audiophiles no longer have to pay a biological tax for high-fidelity reproduction. Modern processing power allows us to reverse the inflation. Software utilizing real-time digital signal processing can now intercept standard 440 Hz audio streams and dynamically shift them back to the 432 Hz baseline as you listen. This algorithm executes the conversion without slowing the tempo or degrading acoustic clarity, restoring the geometric resonance that classical composers originally intended. True high fidelity is achieving perfect clarity at a frequency that allows the human nervous system to finally settle.